Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. I'm reading The Wheel of Time for the first time and sharing the experience with you. This is One Good Turn, The Eye of the World, and today we are covering Chapter 18. It's another chase, guys. An exciting chase. We get a fight. We get some possible Matt lore, lineage lore. There are some exciting things I'll want to call out as I go through, but yes. They're heading on at a fairly steady pace along the Camelin Road. Rand thinks to himself about how much he has daydreamed over the mayor's old map at the inn. The Wine Spring Inn, I mean. So even though he's never been to this road, he can visualize where it is in relation to other places, which is neat. And they're traveling through a bunch of hills, the hills of Abshur. And essentially this road, which I think it mentioned is a dirt road, not a stone road or anything like that. For the most part, it curves with the hills, but at some points, it just directly cuts through a hill. Like the hill was dug into, like if it had been too troublesome to build around it. Egwene complains after the third day about the food. They've been eating the same bread and cheese for 3 days straight. Nynaeve has some interesting interactions, not just at this moment that I'm looking at, but throughout the whole thing. Like she's trying to aid Moraine. But it starts off with her talking about flatwort tea and andalay root as being best for fatigue. And considering this with the rest of her interactions with Moraine in this chapter, I get the sense that Moraine is probably very fatigued from the magic she used 3 days prior, and she absolutely 100% will be fatigued after the battle in this chapter. So I think the fact that Nynaeve is sort of kind of extending a metaphorical olive branch is noteworthy. Speaks to her skill as well, perhaps. Perrin asks why they can't just go straight to Whitebridge if the Trollocs, etc., know that they are on the road, and it's just not the practical decision. The road is faster at the end of the day. Lan lets them know it is all wilderness from Baerlon to Whitebridge, and Whitebridge is where they have to cross the Arenal, which is the only bridge spanning the Arenal south of Meridon in Saldea. Tom expresses a noteworthy concern. Why wouldn't they or couldn't they simply already have people waiting at Whitebridge for them? And Lan's response isn't particularly comforting. It's just, they very well may, but we don't know. But what we do know is that they're behind us. So the only way through is forward. Or the only way forward is through? Something like that. At one point, Lan has to break off. He instructs Moraine to keep them moving. They have to go at a steady pace. They are very careful to go at a steady pace. And as Lan is taking off, Moraine says, "The light go with you, last Lord of the Seven Towers." And it's at this point I want to highlight Jordan is very good at ominously or subtly or minimally introducing an idea in one chapter and then expanding on it fairly quickly in the next chapter or two after. So it was just recently where we get Min's vision of Lan, which involved 7 broken towers, and here we are getting that expanded upon here. So Moraine says, "Last Lord of the Seven Towers," and I think back to Min's vision in which the 7 towers were broken, I believe. So whatever order Lan was a part of, I guess it's no longer extant. I wonder if this makes him the last warder, though I don't think that's the case. So I wonder what the 7 towers are in relation to whether or not a person is a warder. And then I go back to Min's vision in which Lan holds a baby with a sword, and I suspect that is intended to convey some sort of rebirth of this order, of the Seven Towers, possibly. Whether or not it is Lan's direct child or not is hard to say, but if nothing else, he will, I think, leave a legacy. They continue on, and Nynaeve says, "Can't we go any faster? Those horns are getting closer." To which Moraine responds, "And why do they let us know they are there? Perhaps so we will hurry on without thinking of what might be ahead." Which is ominous, to be certain. They are being corralled, possibly. But this chapter does an excellent job of creating that tension of them being followed. The horns keep coming. They do not have a moment to rest. And at one point, they start associating the loudness of the horns with the distance of the horns. It sounds like it's a mile away. It sounds like it's 2 miles away. It sounds like it's 3 miles away. Or in reverse, essentially. And I think back to some of Sanderson's lectures in which he talks about how to do fight scenes, and I think he articulates a similar principle to what's being expressed here, which is giving something for the audience to track or to count, so to speak. I've done a terrible job of articulating that, but it is where my mind went. Lan returns, and he says, "At least 3 fists of Trollocs, each led by a half-man, maybe 5. Which essentially means 500 Trollocs behind them, which is a lot. That is a severely large amount. How on earth did such a large force get there, and get there so quickly, and possibly without even being noticed? Did they come from Bear Lawn as well? They are coming from behind the group. Is this not something that the Children of the Light might have had an interest in going after? Do you think the Children of the Light could be on their way to rescue? Not rescue, rephrase. Do you think the Children of the Light may end up getting wind of this and then feel it is their duty to stop the Trollocs, by dint of them being agents of the Dark One, and incidentally, possibly rescue them in the process? I don't think that's going to happen, but how could the Children of the Light 3 days away not hear of such a large army, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, they have to choose either to go north or south. To the south are the hills of Abshur, barren and dead, and the Terran, with no way to cross and no traffic by boat. To the north we can reach the Arenal before nightfall, and there will be a chance of a trader's boat if the ice is broken at Meridon. Lan mentions, ominously, "There is a place the Trollocs will not go." Moraine viscerally says no. And, first off, I think we must travel to the mines of Moria, scene in Lord of the Rings. But obviously, when you hear that there's a place they cannot go, you know that that is where they are going to end up. And my supposition, based off of what I know regarding who I expect to be Mat and the dagger and the tainted place, I think is going to occur here. I think that's what this is heading toward. The horns keep howling. Moraine decides to go north, which, between the north and the south option, it sounds like north is really the only option. Lan is pushing them hard. The Trollocs are gaining ground on them. And there are some Trollocs that were scouts that had been sent ahead that they get very close to. And finally, these scouts, these Trollocs and a Fade come upon them, and this is where we get the battle, the fight scene. Their first battle. I'm so proud of them. They come out of it more or less unscathed, I suppose. Lan instructs everyone to stay close to him, and then he charges at them, and Rand and Perrin start shouting, "Manatharin, Manatharin!" And Mat shouts instead, "Karai on Kaldazar, Karai on Elisanda al Elisanda." And I recognized Manatharin, but I didn't quite remember where it was from. It took me a moment to remember that that was from Moraine's story earlier on in the book about Emond's Field and the Two Rivers area. and I had no idea what Matt was saying or why. I suppose it's fair to reason that it's connected to Manetheren, but I was wondering, is he possessed? Is he accessing the power? Is Moraine doing something to grant them courage? Uncertain at the time. So the fight is happening, and Lan is pretty much taking care of the Fade as best he can, while the rest take on the Trollocs. Rand is doing his very best to stay on the horse. They all are. He's also focused on protecting Egwene as best he can. Moraine is kicking ass. Around the three women, a space opened as Trollocs tried to flee from Moraine's staff, but as they attempted to avoid her, she sought them out. Fires roared, and the Trollocs howled in rage and fury. Above, roar and howl crashed the tolling of the warder's sword against the Murdrolls. The air flared blue around them, flared again. Very impressive. Eventually, Lan manages to cut off the Murdroll's head, I think it is, and he's still up and moving, which is horrifying, but Tom shouts out, "It won't die until nightfall. Not completely, that's what I've heard anyway." And Lan shouts at them to ride. So they keep running, and even more Trollocs are showing up now. A black sea. And at one point, Moraine casts a fire spell, Wall of Fire, which the Fades are not uniquely afraid of passing through, but their horses are. So the Fades are trying really hard to get their horses to go through the fire, but they don't. So that's really interesting. I wonder if they are normal horses? Probably not, but still. And this is something that is extremely tiresome for Moraine. It took a lot of energy, and she even says at one point that fire is not her unique specialty. Which, of course, invokes the conversation she had with Egwene earlier on about fire and the other element, I guess, for lack of a better word, since I can't remember the specific element, as being more male-oriented, whereas water is more to the feminine. Anyway, at the end of the day, Matt was the only one that got unhorsed, but he hopped back up on the horse quick enough. Don't recall if I said that already. They managed to gain some ground thanks to Moraine's intervention, and Egwene asks about the shouting. The war cries, rather. Rand thinks that's just something you do in cases like this. Perrin felt that they have a right to do so, because they're the descendants of Manetheren. Egwene asks what it was that Matt was shouting, and I'm glad we're going to get an answer to this question, right away. Matt doesn't remember, though, what it was that he shouted. But interestingly, Egwene says, "When you shouted, I thought, just for a minute, I thought I understood you, but it's all gone now." Which is very ominous, isn't the right word, because I'm not afraid of it. And I don't think it means a negative implication. It's more like, I think there's something primal involved with Egwene's connection to the One Power and to Matt's connection to the One Power. Moraine explains, "Karai on Kaldazar, Karai on Elisanda, al Elisanda. For the honor of the Red Eagle, for the honor of the Rose of the Sun. The Rose of the Sun, the ancient war cry of Manetheren and the war cry of its last king. Eldrine was called the Rose of the Sun. The blood of Aemon's line is still strong in the Two Rivers. The old blood still sings." So, for the honor of the Red Eagle, again calls back to Min's vision of Matt, and Rand, Matt, and Perrin all seem to have more or less the same thought, or at least Rand suspects the others do as well. If Matt was a descendant of the ancient kings of Manetheren, maybe the Trollocs were really after him and not all three of them. The thought made him ashamed. His cheeks colored, and when he caught a guilty grimace on Perrin's face, he knew Perrin had been having the same thought. I get the instinct, but also don't forget that she's interested in which of the three of them were born outside of the Two Rivers. Just to consider that. In one way, that might almost rule out Matt as the Dragon Reborn, then, if we can tell from this that he is, in fact, born of Two Rivers blood. Not that that makes him safe by any means, because I still suspect the Dark One isn't sure which of the three is the Dragon Reborn. Or even if he is, all three of them still have big parts to play in the story, if nothing else. Tom has a good line and speaks to the secretiveness of this history of Manetheren. I can't say that I have ever heard the like of this. Another time I might even make a story out of it, but right now, do you intend to remain here for the rest of the day, Aes Sedai? No. At this point, Lan essentially has her convinced that they have to go to the place that she doesn't want to go. So they all gather around her, and she casts a spell which will set their trail off in another direction. It won't last indefinitely, naturally, but it will buy them a bit of time. Egwene comments on the power of the staff that Moraine used to cast the spell, and Moraine instructs her, I have told you, child, things do not have power. The one power comes from the true source, and only a living mind can wield it. This is not even an angriol, merely an aid to concentration. They follow Lan, and eventually they get to a city. But it's a very ominous-looking city. A great irregular mass stretched off to either side out of sight in most places, as high as the trees that grew right up to it, with even taller spires here and there. Leafless vines and creepers covered it all in thick layers. A cliff? The vines will make climbing easy, but we'll never get the horses up. He doesn't even realize it's a city at first, which speaks to how much nature? Dark nature? Has overtaken it. Suddenly, as they rode a little closer, he saw a tower. It was clearly a tower, not some kind of rock formation, with an odd pointed dome at the top. A city, he said, and a city wall, and the spires were guard towers on the wall. His jaw dropped. It had been 10 times as big as Bear Lawn, 50 times as big. Perrin, smart Perrin, points out the vines growing over the wall, and the creepers, and how it's in a state of disrepair. I wonder what city it was, Egwene mused. I wonder what happened to it. I don't remember anything from Papa's map. It was called Eridhol. In the days of the Trolloc Wars, it was an ally of Manetheren, says Moraine. Later, Eridhol died, and this place was called by another name. What name? Matt asked. They stop at what had once been a gate enough for 50 men to march through. No sign of the gate. Matt has to ask the name again, and Moraine says, Shadar Logoth. It is called Shadar Logoth, which is a very ominous-sounding name if you ask me. Sounds very Dark-one-y. And I'm scared, don't go in there. Or don't go far in there. Or at least if you do, Moraine, do not let them all run off in opposite directions. Or something. Stay close. Very excited to see who messes up and why while they're in there. I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye.